Do we have hopes for a diplomatic breakthrough in this conflict after that first face to face meeting between the foreign ministers of Russia and Ukraine?
To be quite blunt with you, Delano, I don't think so. I think the whole press conference can be summed up when Sergei Lavrov said Russia did not invade Ukraine. This is a special military operation. And then he said that there was even a contradiction between what Russia is saying about the bombing of this hospital, this maternity unit, yesterday in Mariupol, with the Russian foreign minister saying that it was being used, or claimed that it was being used by separatist fighters as a base, and that there were no women, no children, and no workers in there from the hospital. So admitting that it had been Russian forces that had bombed it, and just previous to that, there was a statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, who is the spokeswoman for Sergei Lavrov, saying that the bombing by Russian forces was fake and that it was information terrorism, and therefore there was no bombing by Russian forces. So that actually is a contradiction between what Russia is saying about this. So the bottom line is, he's saying the same things. That neo-Nazis are taking control of Ukraine. We want basically the capitulation of the Ukrainian government before we're willing to set up humanitarian corridors. We want the international community to recognise Russian sovereignty over Crimea and also over the Donbass region in the east of the country. So there's no way that the Ukrainians are going to accept that. And I think that the Ukrainian foreign minister went in there hoping to secure some kind of ceasefire, or at least humanitarian corridors that will be respected and won't be opened fire on by Russian forces. It looks pretty much as though there's been absolutely no progress at all.
Okay, no progress on that front. Now, in a statement earlier today, we had the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris in Poland, and she said that Moscow is committing atrocities of unimaginable proportions in Ukraine. Now, something Ukraine's president has been asking for is a no-fly zone. NATO and the United States continue to rule this out. Just 2 days ago, we had Poland, who suggested that they want to send its fighter jets, its Russian-made fighter jets, to Ukraine via Germany. The U.S. shot that plan down too. Do we have any more progress on that front, on how NATO and its allies can help Ukraine in the skies?
No, no progress on that front either. That was brought up. It wasn't actually discussed during the statements by the two leaders, Andrzej Duda, the president of Poland, or Kamala Harris, the vice president of the US. They didn't mention those issues when they were making their statements, but there was a question by one of the journalists there to ask about the selling or the handing over of MiG-29 Soviet-era fighter jets to the Ukrainian forces. Andrzej Duda said that that was not going to go ahead because it had to be taken in consideration that NATO had to be secure. The problem here is that the United States, to whom these fighter jets have been given now in exchange for modernizing Poland's fighter jets, has refused to send them to Ukraine because they don't want NATO to be dragged into the conflict if Russia considers that it's NATO that is responsible for sending these fighter jets in to be used. And the second point about the no-fly zone, that's also been ruled out because they're scared, the NATO members, that if a Russian plane is shot down over Ukraine during the no-fly zone, then that will automatically mean that it was a NATO fighter that shot it down, and that would also open up the conflict much wider than just in Ukraine.
Now, in a few hours' time, we have EU leaders who are going to gather at the Palace of Versailles today. Up until now, EU leaders have acted in lockstep and barrel with the United States and the United Kingdom, except when it comes to banning Russian energy. Are we going to see unity or divisions in Versailles?
If we heard what President Biden was saying when he announced that the United States was going to ban Russian imports of Russian energy to the US. He did say that some countries would find this difficult. I think Russia is seeking to divide the European Union. That was one of their tactics right from the start of this. But I think there is an understanding amongst EU members that some countries like Germany, for example, which are 40% dependent on Russian gas, can't just switch that gas off one day to the next. But they're going to move together towards becoming independent of Russian fuel and gas. But that's a long-term prospect, and that's something that President Macron has been talking about for quite a long time. France is better off than Germany due to its nuclear power and the fact it's less dependent on Russian gas as well. But it's not something that's going to be agreed upon, I think, as a blanket agreement between all the 27 members who are meeting at the moment in Versailles. But there is an agreement that the EU is much more together now than it was before this conflict in supplying military aid to Ukraine.
Thank you very much for that, Philip.